Hello and welcome to another board game review. This is of one of my newer board games, which is rapidly becoming one of my favourite things. So I really wanted to review this kind of as quick as possible because it's just easily becoming one of my favourite board games of all time. It's going to jump into my top 10 list very comfortably. So this is my review of Time Stories. I'm going to do a full rules explanation as well, largely because it's not very complicated. In fact, you can basically see the entire game set up in front of me here. There's not much else to go on. But yeah, so it's not that complex to play. So I'll do the full rules explanation, but it is incredibly deep, very complex as a game and as a concept, and as just the workings and the mechanics of it. It's I don't know, it's just kind of amazing. I've never really played anything like this. I've got a fair few role-playing type games, like Manchester Madness and things like that, and other story-led games. But yeah, I've never played anything like this before. It's really amazing. We played it a couple of weeks ago, one of the expansions, Under the Mask, and it was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had. And we just loved it. We just played it until we completed the mission. Because every time you play, you can play through each time as one attempt at the mission, and then you can try again. Let me explain. So in the game, you the players are members of a time travelling agency who are working to try and fix anomalies in the past or correct things. Each mission is different. Correct things that other time travellers have done that have messed up the past. You're basically trying to go back in time and stop something from happening, or find out why something happened, or find out some secret information, or do some task, which will be explained at the beginning of the game. So yeah, so in the box comes the Asylum story, and the setup for that. I'm not doing any spoilers. I am avoiding spoilers here, by the way, because this is a spoiler game, because it will have bits and pieces that, as the story progresses. So I'm not going to spoil anything. But as the game's set up, you're sent back to fix an anomaly. They've detected an anomaly or something similar to that. And you're sent back to find out what it was, or maybe stop it, or whatever. So you travel back in time, but only your conscious minds travel back in time, and you inhabit the bodies of people of the time period who are there. And you have sort of their character to play as. This is the Asylum characters, some of whom are a bit freaky, because they're, asylum patients, mental asylum patients. But yeah, no, you inhabit their body and their conscious mind, and you can switch out. So each time you attempt the mission, you can pick a different character, because you can switch, you choose whose mind you choose to inhabit. And you explore the location, unveiling the story, reading the story, and hopefully trying to find a conclusion. And it really can't stress how story-led this is. This isn't like Manchester Madness that I mentioned before, where you can just sort of trundle through. You can trundle through Manchester Madness and win or lose, not really understanding what the story was. You can completely fail to uncover the story of Manchester Madness and still win. I've seen that happen, because it's kind of a mechanical game. You're kind of moving through and fighting monsters and solving puzzles and things. This is absolutely story-led. You've got to pay attention to all the details. You've got to learn. I've cocked up a couple of times in this from not properly reading or not properly understanding what was going on the location I went to. So the big thing here is replayability. Every story has a conclusion. So every story is contained and has a conclusion. The Asylum story has a conclusion. The Under the Mask that we played the other week has a conclusion. So yes, there's the replayability issue there. You can say, well, why would I want to buy a game that I can only essentially play through once, only play through to one conclusion? First of all, the game has a save mechanic. The box has a way, the inlay in the box is designed so that you can put it back in and save your game. So you can put all the cards in a set way, you can set aside what people's equipment, you can set the timer so you know how long you've been playing. You can basically save your game, and then you can come back again later, because it is a lengthier game. It's going to take several hours, up to 4 hours maybe, if you wanted to play through a story in full from start to finish and win or lose, whatever happens, then you probably want to set aside 4 hours or so. But there's a complexity to the stories, and there's a unique way the mechanics work, where I think it's not that big an issue. I think it wouldn't be that hard to come back to a story that you've already completed and try and complete it again, because there's a level of confusion that it doesn't necessarily matter. Remembering everything is quite tricky. The game has a number of mechanics that lend themselves to be slightly. They can add a level of confusion to remembering it. For example, This is the item deck here. Items are simply numbered. When you go to a location to find items, it will tell you to take item 6 or item whatever up to things up to 30 in this deck. You will take an item. So you don't know what that item is. It's just going to tell you get that item. So you don't know until you take the card what the item is. So you can't remember. You can remember, say, we need the shovel or whatever it might be. We need that item to complete this mission. But you don't know where it is because you're going to locations. They're going to say you get item this probably. So you can't remember what number that item is. It's not that helpful. Also, information, you learn things throughout the game that will help you do things at various times, and they're represented. So rather than have an item card for the game, they have a universal representation that can work for every story, and that's these little tokens. So you might learn something and it will say, take this token. And you place it on the board to say that you now know this piece of information. So when this symbol comes up again on another card or on a later part of the game, part of the story, you know this piece of information and can thus do the thing that it says. That's ingenious. It really is. You might know the information yourself as a player playing the game, but until you've found the information in the game, you can't do it. And it's not easy to remember. There's a lot of these. There's like 20 of these tokens, maybe probably more than that. And it's not easy to remember what ones are what. You don't use them all. You may use maybe 5 or so throughout the course of a game, but there's lots of them, different colours, different combinations of the patterns. Every sort of just one big square. There's just all combinations in every colour, and you can't necessarily remember what ones signify what. Where you pick different ones up, where they come in. You remember the information from if you play the game again. You'll be like, well, I remember that this person is the villain and they're doing all this, but you don't know that information through the context of the game. You can't do anything about it until you've found the information again. It's just super fun game. It's crazy amounts of fun, and it's a brilliant level of complexity. But I'll show you how I'm really rambling. Really feel like I'm rambling, so I think I better show you the more specific mechanics. Okay, so here we can see the board set up. This isn't a particularly representative of the game as such, that you won't see this exact everything, but this is the starting location for the Asylum game, so I'm not going to give away any real spoilers like I said before. This is just the starting location. So how it works is, once you enter a location, you have a map at the top here that you can see, which is a map of the location that you are in. So it's a map of the entire location, and you can pick where you're going in the location with your little pawn piece there. So you pick where you are in the location is represented on this map here, which will change as the map changes. But then once you've done that, you find the location. Then in this deck down here, which is a big old deck, you can see this has every location in it. So you find the location. So that one at the top says dormitory there. So you find the stack of cards that represents your location, and you lay them out. So what they do is you have a describing card. So day room here is the opening location of the asylum. You have this card that describes the scene, which you read out, and then you lay out as a picture. So you can see a picture. This is what you can see in the day room. This is what the day room looks like. So you can see a full little panorama of the day room. Players will then pick where they want to go in the room. So each card represents a spot in the room. So say this player here, they want to talk to this nurse, so they're going to go there. This person's going to go talk to this bloke. And then they're going to, so you pick which section of the room you want to interact with. If there's a person there, it might be to talk to them. If it's a task of some sort, it might be to investigate the room or whatever. Maybe you want to go see what this scary-looking ring girl is doing, painting what she's painting. So you'd go to there. You then, once you've done that, you would take, if you're wherever you are, you take the card and take it and read it secretly, or at least not out loud. So you take the card of the location that you're looking at. So this person's talking to the nurse, so they're going to take this and read that card. And then you can communicate with the other players to say you're working together. It's a cooperative game, so you can communicate what's on that card. You just can't read the card out loud. Only you really know what's on that card, and only you get to see that card. So if there's a visual thing on the card, only you get to see what it is. So once everyone has looked at their card and they know what they're personally looking at in the room, you're then going to decide what your actions are. So your action is going to be either to interact with the card, if the card has some sort of effect, so if it's combat, for example, or if you're searching or if you're doing something on the card, you can choose to interact with the card. You'll know what that is if it's some sort of test, it'll have shields on it. So a test is represented by shields. So they're blank on one side and skulls on the other. So say you might have a test that's as a 3 difficulty. So you're going to have 3 blank shields that you place down, and then you're going to perform a task. Some cards lock you in, so some cards will have a lock symbol on, which means that you're not allowed to leave them. So you might get stuck on a card. But yeah, so it's an action to interact with the card. Another action you might want to do is move. So you might be like, well, there's nothing useful on this card, so on my turn I'm going to move to there. So you move to a new spot and you get to look at a new card and learn more information. Let's have a quick look at how a task works if you're performing a task. So say this card here was off. Say you were playing chess against this bloke. So there's a little chess set on the table there. So say you had to play chess against him and it had a difficulty level 3. So we've got 3 blank shields. We put them there. And then I will roll my, say I had some sort of intelligence check or whatever it was, whatever my skill was, I would roll some dice. So these are the dice here. And then they represent, so we get 2 stars represent successes, blank is just blank. So I've got 2 successes, which means I remove 2 shields. So I'm presumably winning the chess game, and then I can play another round, or another player who also happened to be there could take a try themselves, and then take another round and roll again. The next round, lose some time, and then so that's another 2 successes, and that would win that. So that would basically, you're just trying to remove the shields, trying to get stars to remove the shields. What are the skulls though? So say it was some sort of combat test. So I might have 3 shields and 1 skull. So the way this works, say it was combat, because the characters have combat. Say I was this guy, Eugene Bosquet. You notice that every character has special abilities as well, which will be unique to each game and unique to each character. I won't go into those now, because that'll be more interesting later for you to discover. But yeah, so this is Eugene. So he has a combat of 1. He's not very good in combat, but he does have 3 health, and he has 2 blue shields there. So I'm going to only rolling 1 dice for this combat. Oh, I rolled a skull. Okay. So I've got no successes, so I haven't done anything. I haven't removed any shields at all. And I've got 2 skulls visible. So I've got a skull on my dice and a skull on the shields here. You have to remove the shields from left to right, so I can't remove the skull first. If I did have a success, I couldn't remove the skull. I'd have to leave it there. I'd have to remove these two blanks first. But basically, so say we've got this as I rolled. So I've got 2 skulls. So there's 2 red skulls. I have to compare that to my defense. Now my defense is 2, so that's okay. But if I had 3 red skulls, or say there was another red skull there, it's particularly difficult to combat. If it's greater, so there's 3 now to my 2, if it's greater than my strength, I'm going to lose a health point. So I lose 1 health. And if you lose all your health, obviously, you die. Well, you don't die. What happens is your conscious mind gets knocked out of the character, and they become themselves again. Basically, you lose control of the person who's you're essentially possessing, I guess. Basically, you have to remove all the shields. Once you've removed all the shields, you complete the task. You get the reward, or you escape the card, or whatever the effect is that you were trying to accomplish. Once you're done with the location, you choose to change location. So you go change as a group. So if you want to change location, you go up to the map here at the top corner, and you pick a new location on the board. So I'm going to go to the dormitories or whatever. And again, you move. So you take a turn to move. You roll this dice here, which has got time symbols on it. And then moving costs that amount of time. So that's 2 in that case. So you then move the time track down 2. And now it's important to explain the time track at this point. So we have this track here goes all the way up to 60, although I've never seen it be that high. It normally starts at 30, or it has so far for us. But yeah, no, this is how much time you have in the location to complete your mission. So at the beginning of every round, you lose 1 time because you're spending time in the location to do whatever. Entering a location just costs the cost on the die, and you enter for free, and you can enter wherever you want and then do whatever you want. But yeah, every subsequent round that you spend in a location costs you 1. Sometimes tasks will cost time because they cost extra time to do, and sometimes you'll get delayed, so you'll end up costing more time than the other players. So you'll get there's ways that works. And once your time runs out, so as soon as the time reaches 0, you have to refer to the mission fail card. You've run out of time. There's a number of, I guess, get them here. And there's the mission success card is still there, but there's a number of fail options. This one says time up fail. So if your time runs out, you turn over this card and read it. If you win the game, you turn over that green card and read it, but these are the fail options. So the game will tell you when to read those cards. You then enact the effects on those cards and reset the game. And if you want to reset the game and try again, you do that. There's some information that you get to keep, because obviously learning things. So there's ways that it knows you which cards you can keep from time to time. So You learn some stuff in your first run through, go back for a second attempt and you know some information that you didn't know before, so you get to keep some of your stuff. Another element to note is these tokens. There's tokens that represent things. So we've got yellow, blue, green and brown. And those little round tokens represent stuff. And then as with this information, they are just neutral looking tokens and they represent whatever the mechanics of the game are. So in the Asylum case, every story comes with this little reference card. So we know that in the Asylum case, the stats that the character's going to have are deftness, agility, glibness, and combat. Those are the 3 stats that every character has. And the tokens we're going to be using are the brown tokens represent bullets, and the blue tokens represent cocaine. And there's any extra rules that you might need to know written under there. So that's the every different scenario will come with a different reference card, which will tell you what everything represents. And that's basically it. That's like I said, it's a relatively simple game to play, but very complex to get into. It's all about reading the story and gathering information and gathering the stuff that you need, figuring out what you need and how to compete. Because you don't go in knowing you've got to do this. You don't go in going, your mission is to punch this guy in the face. No, your mission is, well, at least the 2 scenarios I've played, your mission is slightly more complex than that and open to interpretation. So you go in to try and figure out how to do what you need to do, and that's the whole thing. It's all about the story. It's all about telling the story collectively, and it's amazing. It's really, really amazing. It's really, I can't praise it enough. It's a little fiddly. We got the rules wrong a couple of times in the first game, just because it's so abstract as a concept, I guess. But yeah, no, it's I don't know. It's just an amazing experience, and we really loved it. Both times we played. The second time especially, under the mask especially. The Asylum was really good as well. And yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I really can't. It's gonna be one of my top games of forever, probably. So consider that a recommendation for Time Stories. Amazing game. I love it. You should love it too. And thank you for watching. Check out my other board game reviews. I'll probably be doing some more as the days go on. Keep an eye out for my board game that I'm making coming out. So yeah, like and subscribe. And if you want to subscribe, find me on Twitter and Facebook. The links are in the description below. And thanks for watching. The end.